Have you ever had like someone? Because it makes me think of also the color field paintings, right? I think that like
Yeah.
that's Rothko, right?
Yep.
And like, have you ever had anyone just weep like that yet?
Um, I
That'd be
actually,
dope.
I actually have. So I've had people. It's interesting. I've had like really interesting reactions to a lot of different works. Um, I've had people. I've not had anyone weep yet. But I hope they don't. I don't want them to be cry. I don't
This
want
would
them to
be me in
cry.
the background. I'd
But
just be like,
like,
"Yeah,
yeah, color my
nailed it.
installation
I'm
and
gonna
cry.
be."
Like, no, no, I don't want you to cry. But if you have to, crying is good. So if you have
Yeah.
to, go ahead. But really, like, I was able to kind of get these reactions where people see, like, they would see, like, for instance, I did an installation in an old abandoned house,
Hmm.
and people went. They actually the the experience was not supposed to be like inside. It was actually meant to be experienced from the outside.
Hmm.
But people were just so enamored with how this light was shining in this like house that was literally like damaged from fires and all these different things. So they wanted to go inside, and it was kind of like a little more casual of a show because it was a group show and it was outdoor. So it allowed people to kind of really interact with the work. So as an artist, I kind of just like let them do it.
Yeah.
And the reaction that I got, one of the reactions I got to that, which I still remember to this day, and this was 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. But this guy, like, he was saying to me that somehow the story of what I put into that piece connected to something that he was dealing with his father at that time, and how it prompted him to kind of think about the situation that he was dealing with a little differently and then go speak to his father from a different perspective. And
Yeah.
that was kind of like, that was really crazy for me. Like, I was like, man,
Definitely.
like, I'd never expect that. But like, it was humbling. And I was like, man, that's kind of like what this is all about, is for me to allow people to do those things and find out what their relationship is to these things that literally are around us: green trees, yellow light
Yeah.
from the sun, all of these things, red flowers, purple flowers, violet flowers, all these things that we see.
But
So
that story is interesting that you shared because it's like it speaks directly to the kind of impact and reactions that people in that space of ambiguity can have, right? And so like if you were just a little bit more deliberate, you wouldn't have the opportunity for something like that. Like I
yeah.
mean, I was kind of joking about the
Mhm.
crying thing, but like that um whatever does it, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, it definitely is a thing, like, you have to get that out because that's a part of your like palette of emotions. It's a natural
Yeah.
thing. So and I know, personally, like, meditating and things like that, sometimes you just have those releases and you don't really know where it comes from or why it happens, but sometimes it just kind of happens and it loosens you up. It literally is like releasing things out of you. So
Yeah.
you have to kind of do that at times for sure.
How old are you, man?
26.
26?
Mm-hmm.
Shit, man. You're way ahead of me on your emotions. Fuck. Ah.
Man, man, rough childhood, man. Rough experiences in the childhood,
Oh,
man.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That I could see how that would be.
Mhm.
Did you do any therapy or just work on yourself?
More so I actually, that's how I ended up working in light and color and things like that. That's another way, is I actually used chromotherapy on myself.
What's
So
chromotherapy? I'm not
um
familiar at all.
light therapy. So
Okay.
using like a specific um, chroma or intensity, that's another word for it, or saturation would be another word for it. When I say intensity, I'm just speaking to light, but using a specific saturation of a color to then prompt these emotions to kind of like come to the forefront. And I would meditate in those, like, in these spaces. And that just kind of allowed me to make sense of a lot of things that I've like dealt with in my life. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, this is how I'm able to put this into a total different package and a totally different perspective, and then like go out into the world and use it as like essentially fuel to say, hey, this is how I can make this type of work now.
That's interesting. I've never heard of chromotherapy, but it sounds very It's interesting because it sounds really intimate with the self. You get what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
And I was actually talking more like talk therapy, which is like what people usually think of.
Yeah. Yep.
But that's interesting. I wonder. I don't. I mean, yeah. That sounds like like a useful
Mhm. Yeah. No, it was
sort of.
it
Go
was
ahead.
interesting. It was interesting. It was
Did you
what
ever weep from it?
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Okay. That's
And
not. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're just sitting there looking on a color contemplating, I can see how that would be
yeah,
fucking intense.
definitely, definitely, definitely. And honestly, sometimes like now the my meditation practice is like super important to a lot
Yeah.
of this. And it's now it's kind of
Transcendental, like TM.
yes, I do
Okay.
that too as well. I do that, but I also do like guided meditation. So
Okay.
sometimes like I have specific like things that I find that like mean something to me, and I would hear them like over and over and over again, and just kind of like use that as a way to access transcendental meditation, where I'm like thinking of a specific thought over and over and over again until like it becomes something of like second nature. Um, but in doing those chromotherapy sessions, it has now kind of evolved to like doing meditation like in direct sunlight. And what that has done for me has been like really interesting as well. Just from a standpoint of dealing internally, like physical body, how you feel, but then also like dealing with the mental. And the interesting part about dealing with that chromotherapy type of situation, LED light will mimic the sun at a specific chroma. So when
Hmm.
it gets to a specific like power, it will mimic the exact same. It will actually provide some nutrients that the sun provides. So that was another thing that I like kind of did research on before I started doing chromotherapy, to see like if like what I was actually getting myself into. But that was my test. That was really like using myself as a guinea pig too, because I had to understand if like light worked that way, like
Yeah.
colored light worked that way for people. So I just used myself as kind of like the test subject.
No, it's interesting. I this is definitely outside of my realm of like exploration. It seems like you're a very intuitive person,
Hmm.
which is really interesting. And that do you would you say that you have any synesthesia? It doesn't sound like that's what you're describing, but
I don't.
do you associate like that colors with music and like things like
Yes,
that?
yes, I do. I
Do you
do
hear music when you look at colors? I mean, I'm asking dumb
sometimes.
questions.
No, 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 no.
Sometimes,
You're
okay.
not.
I'm
You're
asking
not.
dumb questions because I really don't know how synesthesia works. But it
No, you're
sounds like
not.
you might have that.
Yeah. Oh
Then,
wow. I might have to look up. I might have to look into it now because I've never really looked into it because I always thought like, man, I don't have synesthesia. But when I do see things, I do, and I'm always kind of like putting it together. So I am seeing like, okay, or I'm hearing something.